Well, thank you all for inviting me to come, and it's an amazing, auspicious group. I had no idea how talented everyone was, so now you're going to make me nervous. All these speaking coaches. But in deference to the upcoming tax deadline, I thought do I need to do this more here? I thought I would start with a limerick about taxes by Madeline Began Kane, and it's called Dear IRS. Dear folks at the Fed IRS, your rules and your regs are a mess. You're unfair to the poor, middle class even more, so beware, because I know your address. So she adds a PS to the FBI, IRS, and Homeland Security. This is a humor blog, so please don't arrest me. Thanks for listening. So when I started organizing this talk, I went through my files to look for financial planning tips for women in the different age deciles. And I found going through it that, you know, I coach people that are usually women, baby boomer women, and some just starting out on the right foot. But I found that the tips were really the same for each decile. The circumstances are very different, but good financial planning is just good financial planning. So what I have done is put together 10 tips, and it's really about the title at the top. You're anxious if you don't understand what's going on, and you become adept by taking control of your financial life. So these tips are about getting control of your financial life. Let's see, I'm going to do this. Good. So the first tip is live within your means. Now, this seems pretty obvious, but a lot of people go through their mid and even late 20s kind of in instant gratification and using their credit cards to blur the difference between their outgo and their income. So the first point is to live on a budget and make sure that your outflows are less than your inflows. And simply recording your expenses is a good first step to doing that because you see what you're spending and it becomes a little more obvious. But the earlier you learn to live in a budget, the more you can slack off when you're old, like I am, older. I'm becoming a grandmother in about 7 months. Yes, that's very fun. Will be fun. The earlier you learn to live with a budget, the more you can slack off later, and that partly is because you've saved more money, but it's also because you've learned to have a healthy habit of consuming less. So you just don't have the needs that you do when you think you've got to have everything. Well, my loyalty to the environment and social justice issues are stronger than my economic fealty. So in a way, I kind of favor underconsumption as a way of life. But it's not to say I don't indulge in the American lifestyle and what Santa Barbara has to offer, but I kind of consider making do a virtue. This didn't make me the most popular mom sometimes, but now that my kids are in their 20s, and actually my daughter's 30, and with the economic climate we had the last few years, I think they do appreciate that. In fact, I may have gone overboard with my son because he worked for a nonprofit for the first 5 years after grad school, and he saved every month, but partly it was because he dumpster dove. He told me that it was only things that were still in the original packaging and close to their due date, but I don't really advocate that. There are other frugal ways to entertain and be entertained without dumpster diving. I mean, in Santa Barbara, there's hiking, there's walking along the beach, discount movies, taking adult ed class. I mean, adult ed has taken a hit the last decade or more, but it's still a great value. A lot of things to do there. When you travel, you can take the bus or Amtrak and kind of make that part of the adventure. My sister and I just took Amtrak up to San Luis Obispo a couple weekends ago, and it was a great day, or you can spend a weekend. Just a beautiful view. We're so lucky to be here and with as many things. If you want to take a longer, things like Peace Corps, Earth Watch, teaching English in a foreign country, there's lots of ways that you can live the type of life you want without being rich. I think it probably is harder if you're someone that just loves shopping. And if that is you, then you need to make sure you don't shop when you are hungry, sad, or tired, because those are shown to be things that make you overindulge. Stay home. you really need to just have discipline and learn to work to achieve your goals. I think women in general are pretty disciplined, so when they put their mind to something, they do achieve it. There's a financial literacy expert named Elizabeth Donati, and she has an organization called Camp Millionaire. She says, thin people are people who have learned how to be hungry, not have to be feeding themselves all the time. They're people who are willing to be hungry. And so I ask you, are you willing not to have everything you think you need right now? Let's see. The second tip is to pay down debt and establish credit. The Federal Reserve in December 2011 said that the outstanding revolving credit, which is credit cards debt of the US, is over $800 billion. Of that, the college student debt per person is over $4,000. And that's not including student loans, car loans, any other kind of loan, just credit cards. So here's a question. What do you think is the average household debt as a percentage of household income? Do you think it's less than 50%, about 75%, or over 100%? So raise your hand if you think household debt per as a percentage of disposable income is less than 50%. Okay, 1. 75%. And more than 100%. You got it, it's 105%. And that's down from 114% in 2004. So we're going in the right direction, but it's not great. So if this is you, the first thing you need to know is what's done is done, and don't berate yourself for what you've done in the past, but find a way to change. If you do have debt, begin now to pay it off, and that would be starting with the credit card that has the highest percentage rate. Not the biggest balance, but look at your percentage rate and start paying that card off right now. My thinking is you shouldn't take a loan for anything longer than the reasonable life of a purchase, and you shouldn't take a loan for anything for which there's a cheaper substitute you can get without going into debt. So for instance, clothes, furniture. If you can't pay it right now, there's alternatives. There's thrift stores, there's Craigslist, there's Ross for less. Lots of ways you can get inexpensive and nice clothes and furniture. Weddings, quinceañeros, if you haven't been able to save up for it ahead of time, then it's a better gift to yourself or to your children to have a picnic, have a potluck, do some other thing that's not going to put you into debt, or your children. Even, and maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but a car. I mean, a car, the minute you drive it off the lot, we were talking earlier, it depreciates. So get a used car from a reputable dealer or a trusted friend, and then the minute you've gotten that car, start saving in your regular monthly budget for your next car. Unfortunately, I'd like to say, get on the bus, get on your bike, and I do believe in all those things, but I know in Southern California you really can't get along without a car. So it needs to be part of your regular budget. But you can ride your bike a lot of the time in Santa Barbara. Credit. It's crazy that you have to go into debt or have be borrowing money to create a credit record. But women in their 20s should be establishing a credit record, but only if it's a good credit record. So that means if you can't trust yourself to pay off your credit card every single month, then you should not have a credit card. But once you can trust yourself, start getting a credit card, pay it off every month. It's not a good source of money even in an emergency, and I'll talk about that a little more in the next slide. If you do get in over your head and resort to bankruptcy, that can end up on your credit report for up to 10 years. So it's not a easy thing. And I know it sometimes happens if there's a catastrophe, and it can happen to anybody, but you can reduce your chances of going into bankruptcy or large debt by basically not spending the money that you don't have, and by holding the appropriate insurance for your circumstances. So, I mean, the truth is we don't all get to live the same lifestyle. But we are here in Santa Barbara. You can go down State Street and think that everybody is going out to eat every night, everybody is wearing designer clothes, but we all make sacrifices to live here, some more than others. I've counseled people that are at or nearing retirement age, and they've lived here their whole working lives or their whole lives, and they're having to consider moving out for their retirement years, whereas they might have been able to have more options if they had had a lower lifestyle, had been a little more frugal going along.